Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello, welcome to 4Kids Flashback. I am Tara Sands, joined by
Steve Yurko.
That's him. Hi, Steve.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We have a great guest for you today, someone who understands localization and translation and scripts and writing and all of that stuff. Jeremy Blaustein will be joining us, and I was going to explain some of what that means, but it's going to sound a lot better coming from him. So he's worked in this industry a really long time and really understands it. So I'm excited to talk to him. But Steve.
Yes. Sorry, I realized
That's
I'm like,
you.
oh, this is an audio
That's
podcast.
you.
I need to make sure people know I'm still here. Yeah.
He waved. No, I'm just kidding. So one of the things that we've been doing with this podcast is trying to solve mysteries. And so we have a Patreon page. You can sign up for it at patreon.com/4kidsflashback. And if you are a member of our Patreon group, you get to have access to our Discord. And one of the things we are doing on the Discord is trying to solve mysteries like, who is that voice? And I have found through doing this that when I've tried to update voices, they want like some proof. So I have reached out to Chris Collet and Darren Dunstan have been really, really helpful with this. But just me telling them is not enough, like these sites like Behind the Voice Actors and the wikis. So if we say it on here, they can link to this as proof that these things are true. So I'm going to tell you guys some of the mysteries we have uncovered so far. Are you on the edge of your seat, Steve?
Oh, yeah. I'm about to fall off, and it's going to make for, wow, I could have set that up on here. I'm like, I'm going to hit the microphone, and it's just.
And I'm going to have to do this all by myself then, if you fall off.
I'm going to get
Please
concussed.
Don't concuss. Stay seated, but this is exciting. So, okay, I'm just going to read this out loud for some of the things that we have uncovered. Dinosaur King, the pterosaur, was voiced by Heather Donahue. Xander was voiced by Sean Schimmel. On One Piece, these were some big mysteries. Igaram, please tell me. Igaram was voiced by Richard Cottrell. Makino, I'm going to say everything wrong, was voiced by Rebecca Hoenig. Nojiko was also voiced by Rebecca Hoenig. Pearl, that was Steve's big mystery we wanted to solve, was voiced by Brian Maylard. Two voices we discovered on Ultramantiga. I don't know what episodes these are in, but the role of Lucia was voiced by Beverly Glenn. The voice of Zane was voiced by Jason Samuels. And finally, on Yu-Gi-Oh!, someone named Richard Will, who I don't know, but I will try to find, voiced both Gozaburo Kaiba and Rare Hunter. So that concludes our mystery portion of the show. But that has been really fun to figure out who voiced these things.
Yeah, we put on our big detective trench coats here as we hung out in a back alley and talked about all these unsolved mysteries. We did a lot of unsolved credits.
And Darren and Chris both look great in trench coats, luckily. So it's been big thanks to them. If you see them on social media, give them a thank you for helping us. I send them a lot of sound clips, and they respond. They've been great. We still have some more to solve. Hopefully by next week's episode, I'll have some more announcements. Do you have any announcements, Steve, before we start the interview with Jeremy?
Nothing I would like to declare, no.
No declarations. Okay,
Not this week, no.
All right, so let's head into the interview. In the meantime, you guys can always find more info about the show at 4kidsflashback.com. You can also subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Reviews are so nice, and they help people find the show. But more importantly, here's Jeremy. Our very, very special guest today is Jeremy Blaustein. Jeremy is joining us from Japan, which just makes me feel like we're an international podcast, which is cool. Jeremy, I'm going to let him explain a lot of this stuff to you, but Jeremy's worked in localization for a long time, even predating these Pokemon years. So welcome to the show, Jeremy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's so exciting.
Thank you for joining us. So before, I want to get into your background a little bit, but can you, for our listeners at home, explain what localization is and the difference between just translation work and localization work?
Okay. Well, it's a really simple question, but it's also a little bit complicated by the fact that it's a big subject these days on the internet, so to speak. Okay, basically translation is, well, first of all, I want to preface it by saying I don't really feel there's much of a difference.
Oh, okay.
Or any difference. People use this word localization, but when I started, we were just translating it. But obviously when you translate something, what you are doing is you're placing it from one language into another. But the term localization comes about from the fact that you're altering it in order to suit the local market, okay? And so there might be various issues in whatever local market you're going into. I mean, someone could be eating bacon and you're, sending it to the Middle East, so we got to change that, or that kind of thing. And then also there's graphic localization. If you have a Japanese graphic in the show, you've got to change it into an English graphic, which is translation plus drawing a graphic.
Okay.
So you could also call that localization. But these days people make a big deal about it because on the interwebs, there are a lot of, let's just say anime fans and manga fans who don't speak another language, and they think they understand what translating is, but they really don't. And so in other words, and this is combined with the quote unquote woke, anti-woke movement.
Okay.
So I don't know how aware you are of this, but in manga, anime, game translation circles and among the fans, there's quite a big, it's not even a debate because it's intelligent people on one side and sort of not very intelligent people on the other side. And they think that what they want is a direct translation, because what they think is that the direct translation is going to give some kind of greater insight into what the writer was going for, or what Japanese culture is about, or something like that. And they think, just give me what's there. Just do your job and translate it.
Right.
Like they'll say, I love translators, but I hate localizers. Okay. And what they've identified is that they think that localizers are a bunch of purple-haired, trans people that are trying to put in their woke agenda. But that's from the the big-mouthed incel types on Twitter.
I would guess that there's not. Again, I can't speak for everyone. I have seen some of these debates online. A lot of it feels like people looking for a fight. But again, I don't know. I know plenty of people who write anime, and none of them are imposing an agenda on any of it. They're just trying to make a good show. Yeah. Like that's their agenda, is to make a good show.
It's not just that. I mean, literally, when you translate something, let's say you deviate from the script. We're in a word for word. Let's look in the dictionary and see what this word means and put in that word for this. In our attempt to give the equivalent of what the Japanese script is in English, we do alter it sometimes because it's not.
There's no direct translation.
It's not always
it doesn't exist.
You can't get to the same emotional point if you do a direct translation. And what you're trying to do is give the equivalent of that reaction to the audience, make them feel the same way as the Japanese made them feel. And if something in Japanese makes you feel embarrassed, but if you translate it directly into English and it's not embarrassing, then you haven't done your job.
I see.
So you have to...
You have to find that equivalent in that language.
By the way, Tara, I would like to say, and you could put this on in big letters on your... I did not do the rice ball.
Michael's already taking credit for that. Don't worry. He's already owned it. Michael Hagney, episode 1 of this podcast was about the rice ball.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
So
you have not been blamed. No. Oh my God. I would have defended you. Okay. So speaking of that, and what I want to say too is people who work in this industry, this is because you're finding these nuances, and you have to know that this is an embarrassing thing in that culture. These are usually people who have really lived in these other places and are not just fluent in two languages. They understand the nuance of both languages, which is what you have done. So that's why I want to go back to like why you first wanted to learn Japanese and what drew you to that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I can go into that. But I do want to say that with regards to my work on Pokemon, I never felt like I was doing a straight up translation, and because that's the process that we had, because the nature of doing voiceover is that you must make very, very late second decisions in the booth in order to get that shit into their mouths.
And we were doing rewrites on the fly. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, that show also differentiates. There's a difference, again, between, Pokemon would have a translator and then they would have a script writer. Those are two different jobs.
Exactly,
yes.
yeah.
So you were working as a translator.
Exactly, so.
Right.
I for all the world, I would have loved to have been doing the final adaptations, but I wasn't in the booth.
Right.
So it was, so the best I could do was to give it to whoever was going to adapt it as directly as was there. So they would know exactly what they had to do. So I actually, especially going on later, I veered further and further into the direction of direct translation, just so Carter or whoever was messing with stuff was.
I mean, I'll say that some of my favorite things in the booth were seeing notes from the translator. Because, I would get to a line and be like, why? And then there would be a note saying, this is a different thing in Japan. Just trust me on this. Or there would be notes like, and I love that. But what I really love, and it doesn't happen enough, is in video games, often I'll see a direct translation column and then a script column. And I love that because if we have to do rewrites on the fly, there's nothing more helpful than that.
No, definitely not. Definitely.
But in anime, that rarely happens. Like I was working on something recently where we had to do a major rewrite, and it was like over a holiday and and we couldn't get access to a direct translation. And I was so frustrated because I was like, you know what? I'm going to be blamed for this because I'm at the front line of it. Like no one's going to blame the writer. It's coming out of my mouth. And if it sounds stupid, it's my fault.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, you can imagine why it's so difficult to get. I mean, if you hire me as a translator and you say, translate this, this is before, machine translation. Now I could just drop it onto a thing and give you a direct translation, I suppose. But yeah, if I'm translating and I'm going to do the work, I'm not going to duplicate the amount of hours that I'm putting in. I get paid by the word, by the Japanese character. So,
I see. And that's how you're charging us to do this podcast, right? By the word? Yes.
Exactly. No, by the second.
Yes, okay. Okay, so I want to talk about your interest in Japanese culture and in learning the language, because I think that will interest a lot of people.
Really? I wonder if it will.
Well, lie and make up something good if it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, it was when the daughter of the Japanese emperor came to my school and we began to do
Right. Your Japanese royalty. That's right. Okay.
Yes. No, I got into college and basically I felt like a zero, a dud, having gone through the U.S. educational system. I didn't know anything. Got to college and I saw all these wonderful courses you could take, and I thought, well, I'm not going to go through college and kind of come out of that with nothing to add to my, sort of personality or life or anything like that. So I thought, well, language would be good. If I could speak a weird language, then I'd be like the dude that spoke a weird language. At least that would be something.
That would be your thing. Yeah.
So yeah. And I was really into like Lord of the Rings and like King Arthur-y stuff and like Norse mythology stuff. And so I took a course in Celtic and Norse mythology, and my first choice was Welsh. I was going to study Welsh. I was going to be like the Welsh. And I could have been the greatest Welsh game translator if I had only taken that path.
Interesting. Okay. So.
But the only Welsh professor, she said more or less like, don't study Welsh. Like, this is the Welsh professor. She's like, what are you going to do with Welsh?
And she's teaching it. Okay.
Yeah, she was teaching it. So I went back and Japanese became a thing. And this is timely because we got Shogun going on TV right now, which I just started watching last night. It's fucking fabulous. It's so good. And like, it was 40 years ago that Richard Chamberlain was inspiring me to study, I was like probably 14 then or something like that, but his, Wakarimashita, Anjin Toranaga-sama, Wakarimashita. I was like, oh my God, he speaks Japanese. Yeah, wow.
I want to digress for 1 second. It's so interesting that you're mentioning this because just today, so my friend Stephanie Shea directed the dub of it.
Yeah, Steph,
yeah, you know Steph, of course.
Oh,
yeah, she did.
Yeah, I know Steph. Yeah.
But somebody posted a screenshot of one of our friends is watching it in the original language, but had some subtitles on. And the subtitles made a reference to something that was completely historically incorrect. And Stephanie chimed in and said, actually, we fixed that when we dubbed it and blah, blah, blah. So it was such a great example of translations and localization and people really understanding the history, working together to make I'll have to find it and send it to you. But it was exactly what you're talking about. Where
well, that show is fantastic. The I would say the cooperation and communication between both sides in the production, the Japanese, and must have been fantastic. Someone really was doing a good job coordinating everything because the Japanese, I mean, I've seen a lot of, American shows with Japanese and Japanese shows with English, and you don't see this level of, there was one other show that was this good that was on Netflix. It was, what was it called? It was a Japanese American police drama, detective. It was really, really, really good.
What about the Pachenko series? I felt like that seemed to feel authentic.
I didn't see that.
Okay. Can't remember. Was it called Pachenko? Okay. So you're in college. You're like, I want to do something weird. I'm going to take a language that none of my friends speak.
Yeah. And Japan was, at the time, like, that was when people were like, in Detroit, were hitting Toyotas with sledgehammers because Japan was supposed to take over the world.
Right. Yeah, I mean, historically, it's good to put this in a time frame. Like, again, no internet. Yeah. This is not like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, no
just
internet.
To remind people how early we're talking, because this is...
Yeah, let me take you back.
This predates Pokemon. Yeah.
I mean, just to really take you back, this might drive the point home. I'm studying Japanese my first year in the foreign language dorm. And, in a non-internet world, it wasn't even possible to see something printed in Japanese. So
wow.
Just to see Japanese writing on something was not, you'd have to walk across the bridge to the library to see something written in Japanese. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah. People cannot imagine how that could be true, but
I don't know how we got anything done.
When I first started studying Japanese, and I got my first computer, in order to actually print Japanese onto a paper, because there's no internet, so you have to print it, obviously. In order to do that, I had to buy a $500 dongle from some Boston computer company just to put onto a what are those printers, the dot matrix printers, and it had to fit on there just to
that's
to
so
print.
Crazy.
So.
And it's a bummer that a school wouldn't have access to stuff like that you had to go do that.
Yeah, back then computers didn't know how to write Japanese. There was no software in native English that almost nothing. Just even inputting it onto a computer was how do I input these weird things onto a computer? That's how fucking old I am. Excuse me.
No, you can curse on here, but that it is amazing how just much simpler. I mean, we were working off VHS tapes and all this stuff that's so antiquated.
And I had to learn Japanese, writing it with my hand and looking it up in a dictionary because there was no copying and pasting in a non-digital, obviously. So looking up Chinese characters is a very laborious process. Okay, let's put it that way. And just to move this to Pokemon, which is what this podcast is about, or 4Kids rather. I would get the Japanese scripts from Taj, they'd come from Japan through Taj. I'd get them, and they're always in PDF. It was a PDF.
So they weren't. I was going to ask if they were faxing them to you, but you were actually getting. Okay.
Well, in the beginning, I honestly I don't remember. At the very, very beginning, how was I getting them? It wouldn't have been fax. Because they were whatever, how many 50 pages. We would get
script updates via fax when we were in the booth.
Machine. I never had a fax machine that could handle that much text, so it must have been some other way.
Hey guys, Tara Sands here, and I want to let you know where Steve and I are going to be so we can meet you in person. I'll be at SabotanCon. I hope I said that right. August 30th to September 2nd. That's in the Phoenix area in Arizona. I'll have something in LA coming up in September. Heroes Hideout, Albany, New York at the end of September. And I'll be in the Houston area October 12th. You can check out our Instagrams and Twitters and all that to find out where we'll be. Steve is at Steve Yurko, and I am at Tara Sands VO. And we hope to meet you in person real soon. Thanks for listening. Okay, so I want to just also say that you had translation and localization experience before 4Kids was, or Pokemon or Taj. So you moved to Japan at one point early in your life.
Yes. I went to college basically, after college, I went there for a while, and then, but by the time I got into Pokemon, I'm pretty sure I was back from Japan because I worked for a couple of years at Konami, the game company in Japan.
Right. Which I think is important because again, it's you have to live somewhere to really, again, understand the nuance of the language. Like if you had just studied it in school, I don't think you would have been as good at your job as having lived there.
No, it would be a completely ridiculous to think that I could have translated it if I didn't speak Japanese really, really well, and I wouldn't speak Japanese really, really well if I didn't live there. So, no.
Right. And we should also say, too, Jeremy is Maddie Blaustein's younger brother.
Yeah.
And I'm so interested to hear who introduced who to what and where and
it was
all
Maddie.
of this.
No, that's straight up. Maddie introduced me to Taj and to,
Okay. And do you know how Maddie first got into, I should say, too, for those of you who don't know, Maddie sadly passed away. Maddie was best known for playing Meowth on Pokemon. She was incredible. But I don't know her origin story about how she got to Taj.
Well, I don't know exactly myself, but I could piece it together pretty well.
Okay.
Maddie was always just a tremendously brilliant, creative force. Primarily an artist, but growing up, she always did voices. I mean, we watched all the, PIX, WPIX shows and everything like that. So, I think Meowth probably is a pretty good combination of Leo Gorcey from the Bowery Boys and, I don't know.
And something else.
Hey, you guys, what are you doing over there? He was just doing his,
ooh, that's good.
I mean, I heard all of his voices growing up. Pardon me. I just want to say I misgendered my sister, but it's complicated, I mean,
right. Well, you knew her. We all knew her before and after, and again, she was the first transgender person I knew. And I screwed up all the time, and she let you know when you screwed up. I mean, and that I will say that's something I loved is that she was not shy or quiet about it, and I mean, I feel lucky to have known someone that early on. Now it's like everyone talks about this like it's it's normalized.
Right. It definitely wasn't then, but even after that process, she's been gone so many years that I've spent a lot of years thinking about my own memories and stuff like that. And
of course,
I decided that if everyone has a right to their own way of thinking about the world, then surely I have the right to remember my sister and my brother for the 30 years that I remembered them as my brother, I think people have that right.
I think your relationship is different, obviously, than anyone else's with her. So I would never,
Anyway, she got it. So she always did voices. She tried to get more into the artist side of things, working at Marvel Comics, such and such. But then I remember she went to California. I think it took a voice acting course or something like that in LA. Maybe I can almost remember the name of the person, but I can't quite remember. It was a woman, a voice actor who was doing these. Yeah, and she went there, and then she came back to New York, and I guess that's when she went gung-ho on the voice acting thing.
She was still working a whole other full-time job, I believe, while recording Pokemon.
Was it the she was working for World Daily News or one of those?
That sounds right.
Yeah, she was doing the very early graphics for alien meets, alien babies born, putting together these, Yeah, these graphics of like, Bat Baby.
That's so great. We talk about her all the time at conventions, and just what a pioneer, and how much she would love the openness of these conventions and what she would see. But back to you for a minute, though. I want to know, so you, working at Konami, you worked primarily in games.
Yeah.
But then this Pokemon script arrives. What were your thoughts about it? Did you know how big it was over there? Like, what did you know going into this job?
Well, okay, so I was working in Konami, and then I had a baby, and then I moved back to America. I was in Chicago a couple of years living at my mom's place, and we moved to Western Mass. So I'm a freelance translator, just trying to get any kind of job. Right. Translate anything. Give me anything I can translate. Which I can. Which I can. Like, oh, do I know? Yes, I have electronics. Yes, chemistry. Yes, I know. So Maddie threw me this bone, I guess, introduced me to Larry, and well, I was listening to your Jason.
Jason Bergenfeld we're talking about.
And so if you've listened to that podcast, you'll get a kind of a feel for the fact that how Larry did things, and like Jason was saying, or you were saying, it was a place where a guy could come in and get hired just because he's got 2 suits, and and he can become a script writer, and he can become a director. And Larry was just that kind of person,
I think he felt out people, though, like, as I think about the crew that was there, and I'm like, it was a great crew. Like, again, maybe it might have been their first time doing this job, and they were very green and learning. Yeah. But I think he just hired people he liked, as opposed to being
No, but I think he was really onto something, because I mean, even in a professional realm, like, either half the people or 90% of them are going to suck. Like, in any, you know what I mean? Just
in any job.
In any job, just because they either don't care or they're not suited to it. But you could also take a random selection of sort of anyone, and you're going to find that same 50% among them that's going to be into it, that's going to learn how to do the job, that's going to bring their passion and figure it out. And so I think Larry felt that. I don't know. I mean, there's nobody, it didn't seem like anybody really knew what they were doing, to be honest with you. I mean, other than the technical people, the technical people did, I mean, Armand at the thing was, super reliable.
He was an engineer. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a really good engineer. I guess and Jason definitely kept everything, on track. Larry, I'm not sure what he did other than order schmears and stuff like that.
I mean, but I felt like that even in the booth. I was like, I'm winging it, and they're saying okay, so I guess it's okay.
I think everybody was winging it.
Yeah, and I listen, I think learning on the job, there's something to be said for it. I think it was better than any voice. People are like, oh, who did you study voiceover with? And I'm like, I learned on the job, and it was the best training I could have possibly had.
Right.
And when they said, hey, can you play this old lady and this 5-year-old boy? I just said, sure. Yeah, okay. Right. And we were, listen, we were young and eager.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun too. It was just fun. It's like, just to get paid for doing that, of course, is fun. So,
right. Well, were you into, I know you were a gamer.
Well, so, Tara, do you know that I directed a couple of games at Taj?
Yes.
Okay,
Ape Escape 2. I know that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you knew.
I was Pippa-Chi. I get asked about that. No, but I bring your name up a lot at conventions when people remind me. What was my best line?
Was, well, I wrote this kind of joke into it because I wanted to make like a kind of it's a little dirty, but but
I don't remember any of this. Okay.
Well, it involves spanking your monkey.
I made a spanking your monkey joke?
Yeah, I put that in there, and you had to say
Interesting.
Like something like, watch me spank my monkey or something. Or I'm going to spank you, monkey. Yeah, you're like, I'm going to spank you, monkey.
I got to find that. That's like, there's people who love that game. I think we also did Valkyrie Profile together.
Yeah. And Maddie was on that. And yeah, I think Maddie was
it was a lot of the same crew.
There was one more too. It was called Ace Combat 3. We did that there. I'm sure. No, I also did Silent Hill 4, parts of that there.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of stuff I did at Taj.
I want to go back to this localization stuff because, again, so you're getting these scripts and you know that they're going to be going to another person.
Yeah.
Like, So you're doing a direct translation, and when we talked to another translator who worked for 4Kids, Paul Taylor, he was telling us that sometimes he would just change the names because he figured he should just do that, and then he got in a lot of trouble
Change the
for
names
doing
of
that.
what?
So,
the Pokemon?
like some of the characters.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. You can see why that would be a problem.
Yes, obviously. So you had already done work for Konami and stuff. So you came in with a different...
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I was primarily in the business department at Konami. And then as the only foreign employee, they began to ask me more and more like, hey, what's the American take? And then, hey, can you change this? Hey, can you write a script for Animaniacs? So I kind of gradually got into it. Konami. I was never in their department for translation because they never had one until like last year, probably.
Are you a person who likes anime and manga, or was this just sort of part of your job?
No, I'm actually not a person who likes anime and manga.
Okay.
Very, very much. I mean, I've seen a couple, but I liked Japanese movies and stuff like that, but I never really got into anime and manga. You know why? It was too close to my job. I mean, I'm translating games all day. I do not want to like take a break and watch an anime.
I get it. It feels like work. So, okay, when you first saw this Pokemon thing, what did you think of it? Because I thought it was insane. I was like, good luck with this show.
Yeah. Well, going back to the PDF thing for a minute, I just wanted to say that, getting the script in a PDF format. So I would see, what the scripts look like. You would have a graphic on the front. It would have the title and stuff like that. So to get these PDFs, and I translated Pokemon for 10 years. Okay. I don't know how many times I asked either Larry or anyone else, please get me the either a PDF that I can copy and paste or something editable, because they're producing this thing in Japan. They're not, they're doing it from a piece of software. Please get me the freaking file. And I never in 10 years was able to get them to even send me a freaking file. Like, go figure that. Yeah. So going back to, so I have to, like, for every Japanese character compound, I'm looking up stuff in a physical dictionary, which is a very laborious process. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So that's what that was like. Yeah. So you were saying, I changed the subject. You were talking about. Oh,
no, you're good. You're good.
Did I know it was crazy? Yeah, I knew it was crazy. I mean,
did you think it was going to be the hit that it was, though? Did you have any foresight?
I'm trying to think when I jumped in. Okay, it was definitely after Jason got in, but it wasn't at the very beginning. It was probably, I don't know, I want to say like 100 episodes in, something like that.
Oh, okay. So it was already successful. So you knew you were joining a show that was already working.
Yes.
And they'd send you these scripts, and how much, like, again, it's a straight translation, but how much of yourself do you impose on this? Like there's because, again, there's so many jokes and so many puns, and I just want to sort of figure out where this stuff shifts, where the shift happens into the dirty word Americanizing them, which was Norman clearly said his goal was to Americanize.
Okay, so when you're translating games, there's a difference now that I'd like to mention between localizing games that existed then, and it's really important. And maybe it goes for anime and stuff too, actually. And it's the fact that back then there was no real conceiving of an idea that everybody would be watching all versions of everything and monitoring every translation. And so when you were doing an English language version of a game, for example, you didn't think that people would be playing both versions. The Americans would see the American version. The UK people would see the UK version. The Japanese people would see the Japanese version. And our job was to give something that was fun, felt like the original, but it was an entertainment product. So at the beginning, it was like, let's give them an entertainment product. So that's where, what's his name? I never met him, by the way. The guy who wrote the
Paul Taylor. Yeah.
No, not Paul. The rice ball.
Michael Hagney was the one who.
Right. He's Larry's partner. Is that right?
At that time, he was.
I never met him, but
how strange. Okay.
Yeah, but you can understand where that came from. He's not thinking that people are going to be like, he's going to be pissing anyone off,
scrutinizing it. He said he didn't mean to start. He said, I didn't mean to start an international incident. I just didn't. I knew that onigiri was not a term Americans knew.
That's right. That's right. And so but I never really felt like I was. So I was Americanized. You might say I was going the full route of localization with games at the time. But with Pokemon, because of the process that we described earlier, I wasn't really going for it as much. So did I put myself into it? Sometimes, but especially later on, I was really just trying to get through the very, very tedious scripts, make sure I had all the character names right, which is a big pain in the butt, as you can imagine, because obviously Snorlax is not Snorlax in Japanese, and it gets
right.
really hard. So,
and you weren't working at all directly with the Pokemon company then? They didn't let you talk to them to be like,
no,
okay.
no. I had indirect, occasionally comments from very, very rarely some kind of, I'd hear something, but generally speaking, I got the impression that they were real jerks.
Well, it was, I don't know if they were jerks, but I certainly felt like people were kept apart. So it definitely
why couldn't I get a PDF script? Yeah, why couldn't I get?
I love that you're still upset about the PDF because I do understand it. I do get it.
How much extra work that made for me if you multiply that by 10 years? It's freaking gave me gray hair. It probably took years off my life.
And it seems like such a simple request.
It's such a simple request. Yeah, it's so frustrating.
And if I could interject too, I think as a fan, I think I just want to chime in here and kind of like explain things in maybe layman's terms for fans listening that aren't aware. And I think we kind of talked about this at the beginning too, but I kind of want to make sure that there's a difference between like localization, that you're known for doing, and the Americanization that was the idea behind a lot of these 4Kids dubs. Is like, and I think you kind of said like you're not the one who changed it to a rice ball, even though you were doing the translations at the time.
Right.
But yeah, I think almost I want to bring this up for people that don't know, because I'm surprised by how many people don't know, and I think you've hinted at this earlier with frustrations online that it's translating from Japanese to English. It's not 1-to-1 like it is.
It's not like doing Spanish to English. Exactly. Yeah.
And what you're like, and I could tie this to 4Kids too, is like the translation that you do is not necessarily appropriate for like an English speaking version, because it's kind of clunky, or it's just like it doesn't sound natural. That's what you're known for. Not necessarily. It's like, like because of you is why we got all these, like everyone got their names changed or this and that. It's different. And I know I'm like jumping ahead here, but I want to bring up, I don't know if you're aware of this, but 4Kids at one point tried doing some uncut dubs of
no, I didn't know
their
that.
properties.
Wait, that sounds vaguely sexual.
Right, it does, but or like they didn't have a bris.
Not even, stop. Okay.
No, they did them of Shaman King and Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh, like faithful to the original Japanese. But the problem with those, and I still don't know who adapted those, but the problem with those scripts for the dub was they were the literal translations. So recently I've revisited too, but that's the problem when you don't localize, you just translate, is everything sounds clunky. And unfortunately, a lot of those dubs, a lot of the line rates were clunky. I don't
want to interrupt you too much, but the funny thing about that is that there are a non-insignificant number of people that see the situation like this. Okay, they're thinking the anime character is Japanese. Okay, it's got to follow me here. It's a little bit twisted logic. The anime character is Japanese, and so when I watch this in English, I want him to sound Japanese, aka I want him to speak broken English. You know what I mean? Like Japanese person.
There is a faction of people who think that that's what should be happening.
Right. You know what I mean? And that's really, really twisted logic, because if you're translating it, you're not presenting it. You're presenting it as if that character obviously is a fluent speaker of the, in the diegetic world that they live in. So I can't present the Japanese speaker as a broken speaker, even if it makes you feel better, Mr. Weeaboo, because,
like the point of English versions isn't to rewrite the canon that these characters know English. It's almost like you're watching you're watching a show
as
about
if you're a
Japanese
Japanese
people.
person. Yeah.
Yes,
That's it. That's it. And you're not supposed to be an American watching. Yeah, that's it.
And I think another thing too, and I think maybe this is more on the manga side too, but people think that there should be like translation notes in subtitles or on the side of panels, and it's
as if it's my job to teach you Japanese. Like it's the keikaku. If you go into the meme store,
yes,
it's my keikaku to be on the show today. Because keikaku is different than plan. It's it's got the Japanese. Well, there's this meme that's famously put out there. Keikaku,
the Death
keikaku mean plan. So. Yeah. So, like a good,
there's a place, I think there's a place for like learning these nuances for the Japanese language. But I would say the majority of people watching shows, because I think like there's a huge I don't want to say casual audience, but anime's gotten so much more popular in recent years. And I think a lot of people that are going to be watching, some that are checking these shows out on like Netflix, something like that, just want to watch a show. and
so the debate comes down to, should I say Oni-san or not? What do you think about? Do you want to hear in your English version? Do you want to hear me calling you Oni-san? I know Big Brother doesn't sound good, but I don't have to put Big Brother in there. I could just use his name. So, but do you want to hear Oni-san? Does it make you feel more like you're watching a Japanese product? Do you want to feel like you're watching a Japanese product? I don't know. These are good questions.
What I've noticed is in anime, because again, there was luckily voiceover work in general started casting more ethnically appropriately in recent years. But the big debate was, should white actors be even dubbing anime? This is something that gets brought up to me. And so what I think it landed on, and I think this is an interesting compromise, is if it's being localized, then it's fair game, best actor for the job. But if the culture and the place are inherent to the story, and it has to be set in Japan, and then they're more aware of casting it ethnically appropriately.
That sounds
in anime.
Fair. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it took us a while to get there, though. I believe. I think. Again, it's no different than the conversation about transgender. Like, it took us a while to get to the right place and to be.
And there might be some overcorrections too, because.
I mean, I think there is in certain circumstances. I think whenever a society tries to do anything, you overcorrect, and then it eventually balances out.
Okay, we're losing. Are we losing listeners at this point?
Probably. Okay, wait. Pokemon, Pikachu, Bulbasaur. Let's just say names of
Nice save.
So Bulbasaur. Okay, I've never done that on the podcast before, but I was worried.
That was the cutest. I always thought that your Bulbasaur was the cutest looking Pokemon voice.
Thank you. So okay, I want to, but again, because. So as you're doing this, now I would love to know what your parents thought of these jobs that you and Maddie had, because they have two Jewish children working in Japanese culture. Were they like, what? They were like, my parents are like, what is this show? I don't get it.
I don't. Honestly, I wish I had something to say on that show, but I don't remember my parents either like. Putting together Maddie's career and my career and being like, oh, our children, 2 out of 5 of them are. No, it wasn't. I wish it had been like that.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. So you're working on this stuff, and at some point you move over to Viz. When did you go over to Viz?
Well, I mean, I didn't go over to Viz. Viz, Pokemon went over to Viz.
Right.
So I kind of just got moved along.
Sorry, I should have said it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I started working for Larry. He was writing my checks at first, and then. I don't think I ever got a paycheck, or maybe it was 4Kids. I don't remember who was writing my paychecks or whatever, but maybe both.
Because,
maybe.
Right, until 2005, 4Kids would have had it. But I'm surprised that you weren't getting hired directly by the Pokemon company and that Viz was hiring you. That's surprising to me.
It is kind of weird, isn't it? And I never understood it either, but.
Okay, so we're both baffled by that.
Yeah, I'm baffled by it. But so Viz, as far as I know, and I guess we should probably take it back a little bit because this is already after Maddie there had been the big, I don't know, do you guys have a word for it?
Shake up.
The big
cast overhaul. I'll be honest, the Cataclysm. I had already moved to LA at that point, so I had given up my roles, I guess, on Pokemon. But Maddie was there for it, so I'd love to hear what your side of all this.
Well, it seemed like it was primarily motivated by. I remember talks about money.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it seemed to me like everybody got really dicked over.
Yeah. The Norman episode really lays a lot of that out, the timeline of that they knew they were losing the license.
Right.
But he kind of thought that the cast, including Maddie, would be able to keep their jobs.
Right. And he tried. I think he tried very hard to do that,
There's a different version. See, again, Memories Imperfect. There's a few different versions of this story.
Right.
I don't know that we'll ever have a definitive version of it. But did you keep working on it when it went back to Taj? You were still part of that when Maddie was already let go, or no?
Oh, no, I continued to work on it, yeah.
Okay. Would you? I hate to ask this, but the cast has spoken so openly about how devastating that was. Do you remember Maddie going through this crappy time?
Yeah, I remember. Maddie was living by herself in New York, and I don't think we talked very much about these things, But yeah, I remember how devastating it was for everybody. And then, there was other shakeups after that too. I mean, Viz turned out they were real jerks. They cut the number of scripts I was translating. But I don't know, they got another translator.
Okay.
And another messed up thing was they never allowed us translators to even talk to each other. Like, I never talked to Paul. I don't know who was translating the one in Japan, but you'd think it might be a good idea, huh? To let us communicate with each other, huh? But
it would be it seems like a smart business move, because maybe then there's a shorthand that
let's get on the same page. Let's not give them different looking scripts so that someone in Taj has to put them all together. Like you were talking about says React or whatever.
That's interesting. Okay.
If I had talked to you more directly and had a better pipeline, I would have said to you, all right, Tara, tell me how can I do the script so it'll work for you better? But I guess I talked to Larry and probably Jason about those things.
Well, something that I think you'll find interesting, and I think maybe our listeners will too. Back then, if Bulbasaur had a line, all it said was react.
Yeah.
That was it. It didn't say.
Yes.
But now in the scripts, because I went back and worked on the show starting in season 23, which is bananas and crazy pants. But that we're this old. But because we both look like infants. And but now if Bulbasaur has a line, or whatever I'm playing, if it's a Pokemon character, it will say happy to sad to confused, and it will give all this detail that we never.
Okay, well, let me give you a little bit of insight into that.
Okay, great.
So the Japanese scripts can either say, they either just say react, or sometimes they say happy to sad to this. But it was relatively inconsistent. It was completely inconsistent. Sometimes it would just say react. It didn't always give an emotion. And I would say probably it gave an emotion 1 out of 4 times. Rather,
so what you were getting was inconsistent. Okay, that makes sense.
And then sometimes it would say an emotion and I wouldn't translate it because whatever, I was lazy or I changed the emotion. And sometimes I would add an emotion that wasn't in the original script. But yeah, I didn't get paid that much money that I wanted to spend more than a day or two translating a script. I tried to do a script in a day, and I was doing maybe one a week. Although I will say, I tried to figure out, I would listen to the tempo of the Japanese line and I'd say, okay, I got to hit that tempo. So I was doing things behind the scenes to try to make it easier for, I don't know who was adapting this before. Was it Jason? Before Carter did a lot, I know later.
Before the script, well, it was Michael Hagney for a lot of the beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's who did a lot of the scripts.
Which is weird that I never spoke to him, never heard anything from,
Bizarre. Well, no, I think by 100 episodes he had moved on, to be honest. He was doing earlier than when, I don't know who was writing when you got there, to be honest. I'll have to check. Because again, too, I knew Michael because he also was in the studio directing some of those episodes. But again, the writers were somewhere else. We didn't necessarily all meet each other.
Here's what I think. I don't think there was even a job for, originally the line between I'm just doing a direct translation and you're going to adapt it for ADR was not so clearly divisible. It was more like I was translating it, hoping to get it as close as possible. And the director would make changes in the booth. Okay. It wasn't like a separate process. Somebody was at that time. I think I was going for it, especially originally. But
okay, that's a good question, and I'll check with some of the writing staff there and see, because
I never knew how much it got changed. I never knew how much things got changed, but it became clear for somehow, over the years.
I mean, the major things, and these things I can say did not happen. Like, the script came with the puns and the stuff, which I know were not direct translations, because those things wouldn't have made any sense.
But like I said, at the very beginning, I was trying to do more than direct translation at the beginning, especially. It only became over the years, as we slowly settled on a sort of a work flow that worked for everyone. I would say, how can I give you more of what you need and that sort of thing. And so I think gradually it turned into more of, okay, why don't you have to do your changes anyway. So I'll just give you, it was probably like that.
Oh, that's okay. That's interesting. And then I don't want to keep you here forever, but I want to talk about what you're doing today. But also I know that your time at Viz came to an end, and there was something you wanted to share about that.
Well, yeah, this is a funny story. I think it's a funny story if you're a Pokemon fan, right? So Professor Oak has got a brother, now everybody probably knows. But at the time, I think he was introduced as this new character. Okay, so the thing about Professor Oak's brother, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting this, is that he's got some sort of a personality tick where what he does is he he makes puns, but the puns, okay, this is where you got to follow a little closely. The puns are based on, so he'll be addressing, the puns are based on a Pokemon character name, okay? So, like if he says, I was Snorlaxing all night. I couldn't get to sleep because you were Snorlaxing or something like that. But when he says it, now here's the important part. He takes on the face. His face becomes transformed into like Snorlax. So he does, and the voice is an imitation of that voice actor doing Snorlax or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
because it's a cartoon and they can do that. Yeah.
Right. They do that. And so that's what Professor Oak's character, that's like his thing. That's his shtick. So I start getting these scripts, and it is a major problem. Okay. Because the pun is based upon the Japanese name. And so it's a completely different name, starting with a different word. And so if he makes a pun that sounds like, good morning, because the name of the character he's now looking like sounds like the Japanese word for good morning. Right.
It's a word joke that doesn't translate. It's a word
joke that on top of it being a word joke, it's a visual joke. So it's tied to that character now. Okay. So now I have to, and it also has content. So he's saying a line that means something like, right? So now I have to make a pun that somehow retains all these different conditions. It's got to be based on that character, and yet that character has a different. So it's incredibly difficult. And the reason this led to my firing, so to speak, is because I asked them a question. The first time this Professor Oak's brother came up, I said, okay, this is clearly going to be a running thing this season. It was the first episode of the new season. I said, this is going to be a running thing, and it's almost impossible to translate. I think it's impossible. And I've done some tough translations, but this is like the God level tough. And again, I'm not getting paid by I'm not getting paid that much, buddy. Right. And so I said, since we're going forward this season, it's going to be this, and this is new. Can we talk about, a creative solution to how do you guys want to deal with this? Do you want me to? And the one sentence reply I got back from the Viz people was something like, just fucking translate it.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to talk to you about this subject. Just fucking do it. Like,
right.
And I don't know. What can you say about that? When I'm still trying, after 10 years, I'm still trying to get good work done and to create the best product possible. And I'm now talking to people that clearly don't see me as anything other than a once in a while, machine producing this, and I don't know. I think I probably gave him a snippy reply, and that was it. So they were dicks.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think it goes back to, again, this is an art form, like changing this stuff. And again, it's not. There's no such thing as a direct translation, really, with these two languages. And you want to work with people who really. And I'm sure now that you have your own company, you work with people who respect what this job is.
Yes. Yes, it's nice.
Please tell us a little bit about what you're doing today. You have a company called Dragon Baby, I know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So Dragon Baby is a game translation company located both in Tokyo and Osaka, Japan. We do all languages, mostly all languages that are in video games, even Turkish and Arabic and things like that. And
no Welsh? Your Welsh isn't coming in handy?
No, with the Welsh thing, I went to a different company, unfortunately. We're getting all the Welsh work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Went to your old professor, probably.
Yeah, I think she did. She threw a wrench in. So we translate video games. And, it's very nice because I've done this for 30 years, and all the problems, the misunderstandings, the lack of creative input being allowed. We can take on the clients that understand those things now, and so we produce really, really great quality for games that have great stories. People come to us for creative. Hey, you localizer haters out there, I'm not talking about the kind of creative input that you think changes the original version, but rather which gives the equivalent of the Japanese version.
Right.
For those people who don't know, that's important. Metal Gear Solid, for example. Well, I translated the original Metal Gear Solid, and now when a game is translated, it's got like at least 5 people, working on it. 3 translators, a couple editors. It goes through a linguistic quality assurance process, et cetera, out the butt. But at the time I translated Metal Gear Solid all by myself over 6 months. There was no editor. No one looked at it afterwards. And so I created something that doesn't seem like it was written in Japanese. And I also assisted voice direction very obnoxiously to keep people on top of things. Well, voice actors, got to keep them.
I like having somebody there who speaks the language, though. It doesn't happen often enough, to be honest. So I would have I prefer that when it happens.
Well, yeah, you could be like, how does the Japanese? Do they sound angry? Are they,
Well, and often they'll play us a clip of the Japanese, but I just want to know. Sometimes I have so many questions. And video games, we work so differently than anime, so. Yeah, we did that all the time. And I remember pretty clearly directing you and everyone like that. And we would often just, Jason, we'd say, Jason, put on the Japanese, let's see what's going on here. And yeah, so you've really seen this. I love that you've seen this business for 30 years and seen the changes, especially with technology, because technology has completely changed this industry.
I bet.
I mean, and the fact that, again, this is mainstream now is just bonkers.
Yeah, AI-generated Pokémon scripts, anyone? Why not?
Oh, no. Don't even say it!
Tara, there's so many things we didn't talk about.
What do you want to... What?
Well, it's
Is there anything we can do a part 2. There's nothing keeping us.
When you said Pippochi, when you said Pippochi, I was just like, I want to do a podcast where we talk about,
what
the
did
games,
Pippochi sound like? I don't even remember. Was it just a high pitch kind of?
Pippochi. Yeah, it was a high pitched kind of squeaky. Oh wait. No, I done you wrong. Okay. I said that you said the line, I'm gonna spank you monkeys. Of course it wasn't.
But I wouldn't have said that. Someone said that to me.
That's what I'm saying. No, it was Carter.
Carter said that. How dare he?
Wait. Carter is Ash, right? Who's Ash?
No, Veronica Taylor was
Veronica.
Ash.
I'm sorry. Okay, it was Veronica. It was Veronica who did it. Yeah. And then I want to talk about, we didn't talk about Valkyrie Profile, and that was it was so great. I mean, Megan, did the main character, and Maddie did a few voices, and all you guys did a few voices, and different things. I loved it.
We were always so excited when you had projects for us because
how
we
was
were
I
so
as a
used
director?
to.
How was I as
You
a
were
director?
great.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, but either did we.
Okay.
It was honestly, because we had, most of our work was animated, that a video game was exciting for us. So we always looked forward to that stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. Once in a while, somebody will bring me a Valkyrie profile case to sign, and I'm like, "What? Oh my god!" Yeah. So it's exciting. Yeah. No, listen. I think we're part of the reason we're doing this podcast too is because we were part of this like really interesting moment in time, being part of these Pokemon early years.
Yeah.
And seeing it firsthand, or being a step removed from everyone else's. I guess you kind of were. But we're part of something really cool.
It feels really nice to feel like I was a part of that because I was completely removed from the process. But like you said, I really appreciate you pulling me into the fold here. And it would be lovely to do a part 2. Maybe as you do these, you'll, different questions will arise and,
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens is too, and I'll end this in a minute, but like, after episodes air, we often will get questions. So I do lots of follow up with you guys, and I'm like, okay, because we're really far ahead on our interviews, which is great. But as stuff comes up, I will annoy you and ask you questions.
That's great. Well, I really enjoyed it, so it won't be an annoyance. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Tara. Thanks, Steve.
That was so interesting. That's a whole different insight into this industry.
And yet we were still able to tie it to 4Kids.
To 4Kids. It all comes back to 4Kids.
Yeah, because he's, I think probably, because it was Taj he was working with. So never really 4Kids. It's kind of like our first non-4Kids employee. 4Kids
sort
Flashback.
Of, but I'm surprised it does. If it was episode around 100 episodes, that would have been like season 3-ish, I would think. I don't know. We'll go back and do our homework, but it almost seems like he was working for Taj just 4Kids indirectly. Yeah. So they just weren't paying his check, but he was working for them.
For sure.
It is a bummer too, because how many employees and things want to work with each other and know each other, and that companies don't always facilitate that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a different era because now with just like the internet, it's
now you can find each other if you want to.
And not that I maybe I shouldn't say too much about this. I'm like, nothing stopping anyone from just sending someone a DM or a message, or just be like,
that's it.
Hey, I'm having some problems with this. What did you do?
Right. Well, and if you're working for the same company, that makes sense. I think, I feel like as an actor, it's discouraged to get in touch with creators or things like that. That's what the direct, even when I do audiobooks, there's a separation. The director, if there is one, talks to the author, and then other companies want me to talk to the author. So it's all this interesting gatekeeping that changes from company to company. So I'm always relearning what the rule is. But I'm really glad you brought up during the difference between, I'm going to say there's 3 things. There's translation, there's localization, and then there's Americanization.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say because Americanization is the term that we've gotten to know, which was the whole 4Kids approach. It's a form of localization, but I think there's a lot of people out there that just assume any localization is Americanization. Which
it's definitely not.
No.
Yeah.
No. And I forget how much we talked about this because we brought up and funny, we were all on the same wavelength saying it's not like translating Spanish to English, it's Japanese.
And even with Spanish, there's things that just don't directly translate. But this is an even more extreme version of that.
It's the way Japanese sentences are structured and all that. It's you have to rearrange some things and make things sound natural. And I think, for our listeners there, for the diehards that are familiar with the uncut dubs, I brought this up. If you remember those dubs sounding weird and just the dialogue just was off, it was because those were just translations.
Direct translations.
They weren't really adapted the way, the original TV dubs were. Mm-hmm. So if you find yourself enjoying the Americanized version of those shows, it's probably because they, those writers had more time to actually, adapt it and localize it.
It's so interesting too. Like I was doing a dubbing job this morning, and I was doing like a robotic character. I can't say what it is, but I'm sure it will. It's a show for very small children. I don't think any of you are watching it. But I was doing like a robot, and it had a contraction. Like one of the words was "don't" in it, and I was like, well, obviously a robot is going to say "do not," like instead of "don't." Like not obviously, but in my mind, if I'm playing so there's little things like that, and there's these kinds of nuances that until you get into the booth, and that's I guess where the actor comes in or the director comes in. But what is fascinating to me is how many stages this stuff goes through before it gets to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I said that, but again, there's all this stuff, rewrites happening on the fly, all this other stuff that it would be great to have that original bilingual speaker in the room for.
Yeah. Let alone, the person who adapted the scripts. Like he sat in for the Metal Gear Solid recording sessions as they were doing those. What a small world. Never thought I'd be talking with a guy who translated the first Metal Gear Solid. I actually found out today.
He wrote a great article about it. Yeah.
On Polygon, you should check it out if you haven't talked about that experience. Because I realized that I was like, oh, wait a second. Like, and
this leads us to interesting places and people.
And it's funny enough, I texted my brother about it because my brother likes a lot of those Hideo Kojima games. I was like, yeah, it turns out I'm interviewing the guy who
translator, the writer,
who translated that. And my brother asked why. I'm like, it's a long story.
Well, it's interesting too because when we spoke to Paul Taylor, who was the other person who translated, it didn't sound like he had any interest in being a writer, whereas Jeremy had interest in also being a director and a writer, and had all these other interests. And I wonder if that affects how they do their translation job, because one has aspirations to do other things and an interest in them, and the other is more interested in just a strict adaptation. But again, Paul also did say that he put some names. So I think it's hard not to impose yourself into these things, even if you try to remain neutral and just do the job.
Absolutely, because everyone's translation is going to be somewhat a reflection of themselves. That's just how it is.
Right.
It's nothing's perfect. I think even in official translations, there, some mistakes happen sometimes, but I maybe this is my message to anime fans online. Like, there's no one perfect translation. Everything is an interpretation. So that's just the way it is. And if you don't like it, learn Japanese.
Learn Japanese, I always think if I was someone who watched a lot of anime, I would probably watch both. Like, I think there's something to be gained from both versions, from a sub and a dub. So, I mean, again, that's more time consuming. So,
yeah, for sure.
Good luck with that, everybody. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you to Jeremy Blaustein, and I'm really glad we got some more insight into Maddie. And I wish Maddie was with us to be doing this convention circuit and this podcast, and she should be here with us. And
absolutely,
I'm sad she's not. So rest in peace, Maddie. And on that note, we will
catch you next time.
4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4kidsflashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. For podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends, or 4. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to maji.media. Thanks for listening.